Officers are currently not equipped with it, but it could save lives in cases of opioid overdoses. Now, Windsor Police is considering a change when it comes to naloxone. A lovely autumn day today. Right now, sunny throughout our region with temperatures sitting at about 19 degrees. But it does look like we might be getting some showers later this week. Colette Kennedy will join us later tonight to break that all down for us. I'm Katerina Georgieva. Chris is away. CBC News has learned the Windsor Police Service is considering equipping some officers with naloxone in some units. That's according to the local police union. The police chief and her predecessor have said it's a medical response and the data doesn't support officers here carrying the life-saving drug. So CBC News obtained copies of dozens of police reports to see firsthand how often police arrive first on scene to an overdose call. Our Jason Vio brings us this exclusive story.
In at least 14 calls in a period of just more than a year, Windsor Police were first to arrive on the scene of a drug overdose. One of those happened in this area. Along the riverfront in September of last year, officers on bike patrol spotted a woman in medical distress near the Karen Avenue overpass. Police said that was at 7:49 in the morning, so they asked for paramedics to come and help. At 8:28, according to the police report, that's when they say naloxone was administered and the woman became conscious. That's nearly 40 minutes after police found her.
I think that they definitely should carry it. And I don't understand why they don't. It's escalating, the drug problems in Windsor, and they could save a lot more lives.
Gina Fulkerson's son, Jesse, died last month of an apparent fentanyl overdose. He was dead before anyone found him, so police couldn't have saved him. But Fulkerson says she wants cops to carry naloxone to possibly save someone else, and so families can avoid the pain she's feeling now.
I sat with him for a bit, and I just kept saying how sorry I was that I couldn't save him. And that was it. I mean, we had to wait for them to come and carry him away.
Windsor is one of the few police services in Ontario that doesn't equip its officers with naloxone. In LaSalle, all frontline cops there have had the drug since 2017. They used it to save one life in 3 years and call it invaluable.
I think respectfully, common sense would tell you the benefits of carrying it and what it does to save lives or protect first responders as well.
The 168 police reports were obtained through a Freedom of Information request by CBC News. The Windsor Police Service declined to comment on this, but Chief Pam Mizuno has told us in the past that if the landscape changes and if our situation changes, we're constantly going to assess, and if need be, we will issue naloxone. And the Windsor Police Association tells us that change could be coming soon.
They are looking at some options, I'll just say that. Implementing it in certain units within our organization, and nothing's finalized. But there has been a little bit of movement from the previous where we weren't going to have it at all.
At the same time, opioid-related visits to the local emergency department have been rising. There's been a steady increase since 2016. In May, June, and July of this year, that number has been the highest on record. And Fulkerson, who lost her son to an overdose last month, says something needs to change.
You know, it just, the system fails them.
And the CBC's Jason Vio joins us live now from outside the Windsor Police Service headquarters with more. Jason, what else did you uncover while looking through all of those police reports?
Well, Katerina, none of the police reports we obtained indicated that a police officer administered the naloxone within the time frame that we requested, but the police union did tell us that it did happen within the last couple of months, which means at least one police officer here at the Windsor Police Service does carry naloxone, even though it's not sanctioned. Now, also in 54 of those police reports, it wasn't exactly clear who administered the naloxone or who arrived on scene first. That's because it was heavily redacted, and sometimes we couldn't determine because people's names were redacted and removed from those police reports. And it was also unclear in many cases what happened to the victim, the person who had the overdose. In many of them, it did say they were taken to hospital, but after that, in terms of what happened, we don't know. And in at least 3 cases as well in these police reports, Windsor Fire did arrive on scene COVID-19 first, and they too do not carry naloxone. We requested an interview with the local fire chief, but our calls were not returned.
And Jason, since we published our story online this morning, are Windsor Police saying anything more about this?
Well, I again requested an interview with Chief Pam Mizuno on this, but they did not agree to an interview at this time. They sent me an emailed statement, very brief, saying that further information will be available in the near future, possibly hinting at an announcement to come relating to what the police union told us, that they are considering equipping naloxone, or some officers with naloxone here at the Windsor Police Service in some units. Katarina.
Thanks, Jason. The CBC's Jason Vio reporting live. And you can find more on this story on our website. You can visit cbc.ca/Windsor. Turning now to the latest COVID-19 numbers for our area. The Windsor-Essex County Health Unit reported 10 new COVID-19 cases for our region today. There were 11 new cases over the weekend and another 11 reported Thanksgiving Monday. And across the province, Ontario reported 746 additional cases of COVID-19 today. That's on top of 807 reported yesterday. Strike committee members at Unifor Local 444 were putting together picket signs today. The union is in contract negotiations with FCA in an effort to avoid a strike. The deadline is 11:59 tomorrow night. According to a Facebook post by the local union's president, Dave Cassidy, they are not where they should be at this point, with less than 2 days to go before the deadline. The union is trying to achieve the same pattern agreement it reached with Ford and a new product for the Windsor Assembly Plant.
We have to have faith in our bargaining team that's at the table currently right now to bring home a product for us, and obviously the pattern agreement. Yeah, it's always nervous, stressful times, no doubt. Well, we can build many vehicles there, right? We're a flex plant in a big aspect of things, so if they give us the product, we'll build it.
The two sides continue to talk at a Sheraton hotel in Toronto. The union is hoping for wage increases of 5% over the term of the agreement. It's also hoping for improvements in the wage structure for new hires. 2 more people claim they may have seen a drowned sailor's last calls for help. 77-year-old Reginald Fisher went sailing on Lake Erie last month and was never seen alive again. He left Port Glasgow in his sailboat only to wash up dead near Port Burwell 14 days later. A woman came forward a few days later saying she may have seen his flares but was dismissed. Now this retired couple says they were blown off after calling 911 4 times that same night.
I begged 911 to send someone out. We had 2 boats in distress on Lake Erie and we needed help. We needed somebody to come out and help us illuminate this boat so we could get our vessel in the water and save the boater. And they continued to tell us that it was the boat in Port Bruce. I was frantic. I yelled, told them that we cannot see Port Bruce from where we live. We needed help. And again, we have 2 boats that are in distress. Please send someone. And that was the last call we made. And we found out the next morning when we saw the Hercules and the OPP helicopters flying over the lake that Reg had lost his life. And we feel horrible. We could have saved him. We truly do believe that we had the means that night to be able to save him.
The Emergency Support Fund for Ontario farmers is now open. The money allocated by the federal government is meant to increase the health and safety of migrant workers and help prevent any COVID-19 outbreaks on farms.
Funding will support infrastructure improvements to workstations, living quarters, temporary or emergency housing, both on and off farm. It will also cover personnel, protective equipment, sanitary stations, and any other health and safety measures.
Ontario is responsible for administering the $11.6 million. The funding is in addition to the $15 million that the province set aside for the agricultural sector back in June. Farmers will now be able to apply for up to $15,000 in aid, double what was initially available to them for COVID-19. A new category of help was also added. It allows for up to $100,000 in funding for small projects, like modifications to migrant housing or new equipment that would ensure better physical distancing practices. Your hydro bill will soon be going up. Fixed pricing is coming to an end on November 1st. That's when time of use price will once again come into effect. It means the average hydro customer will be paying just over $2 more a month. The time of use rates will also affect small businesses. Time of use electricity pricing was scrapped for residential bills during the pandemic, with one price set for all hours of the day. Millions of Canadian children rely on breakfast and lunch services at school, but the pandemic has made it challenging to deliver those nutritious meals. In fact, one study reports the number of children going to school hungry has now doubled. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson looks at two initiatives trying to change that.
In this Toronto Catholic school, every kid gets a healthy snack, whether their family requested it or not.
We don't have to worry about packing our snacks. And it also reminds us of eating healthy.
If they're not fed and they're hungry, they're not going to be learning.
Boys and girls, if you need help opening, stay at your seat, okay?
But it's something that doesn't happen everywhere, as Canada doesn't have a universal school food program.
COVID has shown us that school food is actually an essential service, and I might not have said that a year ago.
According to the Breakfast Club of Canada, due to COVID-19, the number of children going to class on an empty stomach has increased from over 1 million to now over 2 million. The problem became particularly obvious in the spring when schools shutting down cut kids off from their access to meals.
I was starting to really worry about the kids.
In Iqaluit, when schools shut down, Jason Rochon and a group of volunteers took bagged breakfasts to the families instead.
We used the warehouse, but we would go into different parking lots in town and we would hand out breakfast.
That's one way of pandemic-proofing meals if schools have to shut down again, but there are others. Some jurisdictions jump to the conclusion that serving meals in schools is no longer safe, says this researcher.
We can use all that we know about COVID-compliant restaurant guidelines to ensure that every meal served in a school is safe. Safe handling, washing hands, wearing masks.
And that's what Letitia Jolampong is doing in this school. Sure, some things have changed.
Before, we cut those fruits and vegetables, and now we just do the individual wrap and you put in the bag.
But some stay the same.
I feel very happy because they're enjoying the food.
You did it all by yourself. Fighting hard against yet another inequality the pandemic has brought to the surface.
There you go. What do you say? Say thank you.
Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Take a look at some of these gorgeous shots taken by photographers throughout the province. At first, just a hobby for them, but turned into so much more when the pandemic hit. We'll bring you more photos and that story coming up right after the break. Stay with us. In Washington today, Donald Trump's U.S. Supreme Court nominee faced a second day of questioning in her confirmation hearing. And despite repeated attempts by the Democrats, Amy Coney Barrett sidestepped questions on a range of contentious topics. Ellen Morrow has the details.
Amy Coney Barrett's Supreme Court confirmation hearings entered a new phase today, with Democrats and Republican senators questioning her at the Senate Judiciary Committee throughout the day. Now, Democrats really focused on social issues in their questioning. Coney Barrett is a social conservative, so Democrats asked her about her position on things like abortion, same-sex marriage, for example. They also asked her about her stance on the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, with the Supreme Court set to hear a case that could gut Obamacare on November 10th, just a week after the election. On each of those questions and issues, Amy Coney Barrett said that she would not let her own personal beliefs or views influence her rulings as a Supreme Court justice.
Judges can't just wake up one day and say, I have an agenda, I like guns, I hate guns, I like abortion, I hate abortion, and walk in like a royal queen and impose, their will on the world.
Coney Barrett said it would be a betrayal of her duty as a judge if she let her personal opinions influence her decisions. Democrats also asked her whether she would recuse herself from any decisions involving election results. Coney Barrett is a nominee from President Trump, and President Trump has said that he thinks the election results will wind their way to the Supreme Court. Coney Barrett would not say whether she would recuse herself.
I have had no conversation with the president or any of his staff on how I might rule in that case. It would be a gross violation of judicial independence for me to make any such commitment or for me to be asked about that case and how I would rule.
Republicans spent the day arguing that Amy Coney Barrett is highly qualified for this position, and they have the votes to confirm her by themselves. They don't need Democratic support, and there's nothing the Democrats can do to block this confirmation. It's expected to happen before Election Day, and it will give the Supreme Court a conservative supermajority. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
When COVID-19 hit, it put many lives on hold. Stuck at home, unable to work, many turned to their hobbies to fill the time and lift their spirits. I spoke with 4 photographers from across Ontario about how they found purpose during the pandemic by turning to their cameras.
My name is Ian Virtue, and I am a photographer here in Windsor and founder of the Windsor Project. The Windsor Project first came to be at the beginning of COVID-19, about March and April. I just lost my job due to cuts thanks to COVID-19. I went from not really knowing what I wanted to do or what direction things were going to go into, finding purpose and finding a direction when we're at a time where we're not really sure how things are going to turn out.
Hello, I'm Jason O'Young, an amateur photographer from Huron County, Ontario. When the pandemic hit, I wasn't able to work anymore, so I was just sitting around thinking, what should I do? And photography is one of my favorite hobbies, so I decided to, spend more time on it. I went from having no purpose at all to kind of having goals, and especially during a pandemic, I'm sure the comet came around. And so that provided a good month of, solid entertainment planning and just something to look forward to.
Hey, my name is Babar Khan. I'm a photographer from the GTA. When the pandemic hit and finances became a big issue for everybody, I started going into, all right, I have an audience. I have a very marketable skill. I may as well try and make some use out of it. And I was able to do pretty well. I started selling prints. All 4 of those images were shot during the pandemic in about late March, early April. And it took dozens of hours to create those images, but it was the most satisfying thing.
Hi, my name is Nick Zook. Photography, the reason I got into it is especially living up here in the Northwestern Ontario region, it's just stunning. I lived in the city before and it has its own beauty, but I don't think it compares to what is here, and so I wanted to capture that through photography and share it with people who don't have the option of being able to come up here, especially this summer during the pandemic. It's very calming, it's very relaxing, and that's how I relax too, especially during the stressful time, is to be able to go out there, take a breath, look at what's around you.
Let's bring in Colette Kennedy now for our weather forecast. Colette, I don't know if you got to see some of those photos, but I loved working on that story. Even just looking at those photos was really soothing.
I know, they're so, it's like, those have to be photoshopped. I know they're not, but they're so beautiful, right? Some of the imagery.
And I'm a big fan of like sunset shots, sunrise, like those colors are amazing, so I love that.
Yeah, and you're right, they are calming, so it's beautiful to look at some of those images. And sometimes the weather can be a little bit calming. I know today, yeah, we had to see that temperature in terms of the daytime high drop 5 degrees from where it was yesterday, but still, come on, 17 degrees is the current temperature now after it was up to nearly 19 degrees for us a little bit earlier this afternoon. Some of the active weather is to the north, and generally that's where it stays. A little bit of the cloud cover goes through the overnight, and let's leave it there in the overnight hours and let it clear back out after that so that we can start the morning off with some blue sky and some sunshine coming back through. And then it's into the afternoon. Look at this. I stopped it at right about 2 o'clock. So you're going to see after lunch, essentially, if we don't pinpoint it at exactly 2, but just after lunch, we're going to see the skies changing a little bit with some increasing cloudiness as the next system is rolling in. And you see a lot of the wet weather is going to, again, it's going to pull to the north. So by Thursday morning, yes, in the morning, some weak showers may roll through, the heavier rains to the north, and then sort of a break in the precipitation if we see any, because there's not going to be much here, but not necessarily a break in the cloud cover that we'll have for Thursday. But watch what happens into the afternoon. There's actually going to be some of the moisture filling in from the south, so it's going to be close here as to whether we get into some of this. And if this just changes and tracks just a little bit differently, then we could be seeing some heavier rains as we go into the afternoon on Thursday. So watching this system kind of carefully, because the models haven't really been in agreement with the tracking with this one. Some pushing it way further east, some way further west, and obviously that has a big impact on what's going to be happening in our skies and for our day on Thursday. So the situation could be a little bit wetter into the afternoon. Just know that for that day. Then once it moves through, what I do know is I see that push of colder air that's going to be coming in as we go into Friday. And when we're really going to be feeling it is actually Friday night. So it's almost like a secondary front comes through, and that reinforces that colder air that's going to be coming in as we go into Friday night for Saturday morning. Watching some of the winds at times kicking up, a little bit breezy, and then through Wednesday we'll be actually seeing some gustier winds, and that's really, as you see here, as we go through Wednesday night and into Thursday morning with the passage of that front. Your overnight temperatures tonight then, 5 degrees all around basically, and then 17 for the high tomorrow, so we take it down another couple of degrees, 16 for London, and there you go. 17 to 18 for your highs actually. And then Thursday we've got some rain showers, like I said, could be a little more, and there's that cooler air Friday night into Saturday morning. All right, that might be a little bit extreme, but some definitely cooler air coming our way.
Definitely feels like autumn, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're going to be feeling it then.
It's here. Thanks for this, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
When we come back, we'll bring you the latest on the suspension of a COVID-19 vaccine trial after a participant became sick. I'll bring you that story in a sec. Johnson & Johnson has suspended its trial of a possible COVID-19 vaccine. The American company says one participant has fallen sick with, quote, an unexplained illness. It has launched an investigation. Johnson & Johnson had been planning to enroll 60,000 volunteers to prove that its single-dose vaccine is effective. Other vaccine candidates in the U.S. require 2 shots. At least one other coronavirus vaccine study has been put on hold during final stage testing in the U.S. That one is being conducted by AstraZeneca and Oxford University. Temporary stoppages are common in large medical studies. Porter Airlines has once again pushed back its date to resume operations. That means its flights will stay grounded until at least December 15th. The Toronto-based airline stopped flying on March 21st amid travel restrictions and other public health measures meant to curb the outbreak of COVID-19. The company has already pushed back its relaunch date several times. Its president and CEO says COVID outbreaks in some markets have dampened expectations to restart next month. He says the hope is that new measures like rapid testing and investing in health and safety will help ease travel restrictions. The airline is waiving its change and cancellation fees on all bookings through December 15th. That includes Porter Escape's vacation packages. It is 6:29 p.m. That is it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Power and Politics is up next. Have a great night.